here. And I think maybe systems is something that's au courant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Systems, managing expectations, like timeline of a week and
Are you talking about client expectations or team expectations?
team.
Team expectations.
More, whether it's admin and all, like, we'll jump right in, but yeah, so I just recently hired, but not really an admin, but an admin slash kind of salesperson. Like beyond the KW, didn't really follow that quite well.
Did you knock on 2 doors?
4 maybe. Some doors we didn't have to knock because people were sitting outside.
Oh, good, so you talked to a bunch?
Okay, good. Well, we're just starting.
Good. So I probably won't be able to stay the whole time, but.
So, Kelly, it's because we have a real mix of everybody in here. Between, more admin, kind of new admin, no admin, maybe, I don't know, how do we put this together so we've got help for everybody?
Well, I'm here to be of service to you guys, so, I would say probably the best to start, no matter where we are in the process, is actually talking about some of the things, the fundamental things that we've got to think about as a leader first, whether we're looking to bring somebody on or currently have somebody. Oh, you got more.
Oh, Jake. Okay, you should now give the presentation while I go 2 rows.
Yeah.
That's right, you might want to move one up.
Yeah.
No, okay. I'll move one up. Actually, you can stay there. Yeah, so I'll just stay here. All right. I'm not taking that.
Well, leave it to the office then.
All right, intimate session today.
That looks really bad, he just hands me. At least they were rolled up. You were really good, honey. Terrible, bad girl.
Uh-oh.
You can take it.
Animations aren't coming up. Okay, well, that's okay. So we were just starting with, the fundamental pieces before, the things you think about before you even bring somebody on, right? And if you already have somebody, then things that you go back and reestablish. So when you look at talent, and obviously that's who we're looking to attract at some point, right? Or hopefully have. They buy into the leader or the vision when they initially come on, and yet it's the vision that keeps them. So that brings up the question of what is your vision in respects to your business, and do you have that actually established? Meaning, if I were to ask you right now, what's the vision of your business 5 years from now, would you be able to tell me? Yeah, and that's okay. Most of
A little
us,
bit, right? But not.
I've got the 5-year, I need the right now.
How's that different from goals?
I agree with Irene.
goals are the steps towards that vision.
Okay.
And yet,
Vision's the outcome.
yeah, the vision is really the ecological impact that you choose for your business to have, right? Meaning, most people look at it in the sense of, we're gonna make this much GCI 5 years from now. We're gonna do this many units 5 years from now. And yet, being at Keller Williams, we're much bigger than just a unit and GCI driven business. We also think about our community efforts, right? Our charity efforts. What type of footprint do we want to have on the industry and the people we choose to be in business with, whether it's clients or team members? So that vision is something that's really important, because talent wants to be able to know that their own vision, their circle, their footprint is going to fit into that, and that they can see that you've already thought about the process. What does year 1 look like, year 2 look like, year 3 look like, so that they can see the progression, that you've actually taken the time to plan it out as to what it looks like. Does that make sense?
How do you go about it?
This is why you guys need to come to the full day course. thinking about a vision's got a lot of different steps. And most of us start at the have first. And yet in Bold, we learn be, do, have. And there's an exercise that we go through in the full session. It's called the compass exercise. And it really brings you into perspective of who are you going to be 5 years from now? What do you want people to say about you 5 years from now? And what would you have to do in order for them to say that? And that really encompasses what your vision is going to be in all aspects. And then it's a matter of saying, okay, if I can see that 5 years from now, what do I have to do in order to get there?
Right.
What's the first foundational piece of year 1, then year 2, then year 3, and so forth? And that's where I think most people stop when it comes to the vision. They've got a concept of what it is, but they haven't taken the time to plan it. So from a talent perspective, I remember when I came in as an MCA way back when, for Simon Keller Williams, and
When was that?
that was back in 2013. That was Sunny's office, launching office. And 3 weeks into my role, I sat Sunny down and I said, Sunny, I want to make $180,000. Now we're talking essentially what would be in your world a director of operations, right? And I'm brand new 3 weeks in, and that's the bomb I drop on him. And I said, how do we accomplish that? Because my goal is to get that into my world in 3 years.
As an MCA?
As an MCA.
Right.
Yep.
Ooh, okay.
Now just imagine as an MCA, you just like a director of operations, you've got a salary, and then you've got a bonus structure, right? So in order for me to make $180,000, my market center and my agents are going to have to be pretty productive in order for me to hit that goal, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And that's where the plan was formed. Then it was like, okay, so as a market center, how many agents would we need to have? What level of production would need to show up? What would be the agent mix? What's the owner profit level that we're looking for that would give you that opportunity? And then we wrote that down and documented, and that became the step-by-step process. So anybody's vision is possible, and yet what they're going to look for is, does my path align with yours?
We're doing an intimate session.
Yes.
Intimate now, it's getting on.
Sorry, I know it's getting bigger. Heidi, this is Kelly.
Hello.
A little mask.
Unique opportunity because we're a smaller group. So the first thing we have is vision, and the next question is, do you have it documented? And is it something, if you currently already have a team, that every single team member already knows and lives and is bought into? Because as a leader, part of our role is to talk about the vision so much that everybody knows it word for word, and that vision lives and breathes without you even being in the room.
Can I ask something? When you said the compass exercise, is that the book, the blue book that we got at family reunion?
No, it's part of the 17 Irrefutable Laws of Teamwork by John Maxwell.
Okay.
Yes. And the exercise is actually not in the book. However, when he teaches that book, he takes people through this particular exercise to identify what we just talked about, which brings you to the vision. And even though we're here till what, 3:30-ish? We've got a short amount of time today. I want to make sure that I get you something that you're going to walk away with today that's going to make a difference in your business.
Great.
And if we have enough time and can circle back, then we can do a shorter version of that exercise at the end. Yeah. So, vision, and then is it documented? Those are the first two things. And then in the documentation itself, we have an amazing book called the MREA, which has the 4 models: lead generation, economic, organizational, and budget. Those 4 models are what you're going to use to document the step-by-step. and it talks you through exactly what you need. And I don't know if I can even show.
Isn't that the book?
Yeah, that's the book there. But my animations aren't working, so it's
Because
not,
if you haven't read it, you have to read it.
it's not coming up.
And I read a third of it, at least. And then I started reading the one thing, so.
I have them both on Audible and I just play it all the time.
I'm having to do that, that's,
Both.
I'm gonna do.
MRA and the one thing, they're both on Audible.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just listen to it constantly.
Through, you just purchased it?
Yeah,
Through
right.
Audible.
Yeah.
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 Now, I would suggest as a leader that you have the leadership version of the MREA on hand.
We do.
Because
The-
as you're,
The white one?
yeah, the one with the tabs.
There's a tab.
Oh,
Yeah, we just
yeah,
got
it's got the
it.
tabs.
So I have one and there's one on the front desk.
Yeah, because as you're developing your people, especially as you're bringing agents on, it's a great coaching and accountability tool to bring into your conversations. And because it's tabbed, it's easy to go to the section that pertains to your conversation.
And that's with wire?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
got
it's a
the
spiral bound.
Yeah.
spiral bound.
Oh, that's helpful, yeah.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And if you do have an admin, have them read the book as well. Because the biggest disconnect that I see in teams is that the administrative hub truly doesn't understand the business of real estate. And when that disconnect's in place, they are not connected to what's going to impact your business. So they need to understand it from an agent perspective. And top administrators do actually go to agent training. They attend Ignite, they attend Bold, they attend 3612-3. Because then they understand what you're being taught and therefore can take what you're being taught and turn it into a system to help you implement it. So when we look at the steps, we've got the vision, the documentation, and then you build out your 4 models. And after you have that built out, then we talk about your value proposition. Why would somebody want to join you? So you recently just brought on an admin/agent.
Yeah.
Why did they join you? What was the value that you're offering?
You're a top seller.
No, but like, an opportunity for them to
To learn more.
learn from someone who's been experienced in the industry and
Mhm.
do well on her own.
Okay.
Yes, really.
So what was her specific goal in joining your team? Like so it's she or he? She, okay. So she's doing some admin work.
Yeah.
To learn that side of the business,
Yeah.
and then also having access to you to learn the sales side of the business.
Exactly.
So in 12 months, what was her goal?
To get her own license
Okay.
and still work as a team as an agent. So basically shadowing and just learning it from the ground up.
Okay. So this first fundamental year will be no sales.
Really no sales,
She's not licensed.
that's right.
Yeah, she's not.
Just
Not licensed.
referrals, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, not licensed, getting licensed, yeah.
Okay. So when you took her through that value proposition process, was
I
it,
did.
That's why you're here. Hold on, when you took her through that value proposition.
When I
that's
do.
when.
I don't think I did, so no,
Okay.
I did not.
okay, has anybody taken anyone through a value proposition process?
Did you, Mark?
No, but we're actually transitioning.
We did a long time ago when the value proposition was different and when we were in KW, but not as well versed in systems and hiring. So,
Okay.
because it was 7 years ago,
Okay.
so it was kind of like, well, what are you gonna get from us?
Mm-hmm.
She went, okay. And I mean, this was way before revision.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah,
Keller Williams have an admin training course?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Which training course is that?
So MAPS has group coaching, the Perfect Real Estate Assistant 101, which is basically fundamental.
Is that once a month or twice a month?
I think that one's every week.
Every week.
Yeah, every week.
Okay.
Isn't that a good one to take as a?
Oh, yeah, whatever I mention they should take regardless.
No, you're talking about like yourself as an agent, as a new agent?
There, on that one, there is one call a month with the agent.
A month with the
No, no,
agent.
no, no, you're saying, should you take it as a new agent so you understand the admin system?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You could,
sure.
absolutely. I mean, you've got to understand and look at what's the best use of your time,
Mhm.
right? We have had agents taking that course,
Mhm.
and yet, I mean, you've got a lot of support in the market center right now, right?
Yeah.
Even Natasha's your MCA, she's incredible, so,
Yeah, maybe it's.
yeah, it's
I feel
really should.
there's so much.
There is,
I mean,
there
I
is a
could
lot.
go every day somewhere else, Keller Williams, and learn something new.
Yeah.
And where you're not going, you can go online and do something. So-
Yes.
So, yeah,
Yes.
you need to figure out, like Kelly said, what the
Yeah.
best use of your time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And really, it's finding clients.
Mhm.
Yeah, so maybe not right now.
Yeah,
Maybe I
'cause-
just have to go diving into the pool and.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah, go do
Yeah.
do
And
more
don't
talking.
drown, and don't drown,
Door
just swim.
yeah, because you've also got to think
Come up
about,
for air once in a while.
you know,
Come up for air
Once in a while.
Were you asking because you would want to, or your admin? to take this?
Admin, my admin.
Right.
so there's 101 and then there's 201. And then there's the perfect operations team, which is Monica and Brindley. And that one specifically goes into
Brindley's-
higher level thinking in each individual position.
Hmm.
So transaction coordinator, listing coordinator,
Right.
director of operations. And I think each role has 6 to 8 weeks just on that role. And that, I would recommend that after they do the perfect
101.
real estate assistant 101 and 201.
Now, the career visioning, what is that course all about? Is that strictly for agent, or is that agent and admin?
If you've got an admin, they should be in that course.
Okay.
Because the purpose of doing your first hire is obviously to leverage your time, right? To keep you in the highest dollar production activity, which you already know, which is lead generating, lead follow-up, going on appointments, negotiating contracts, and role-play some scripts.
See how that rolls off her tongue?
The role plays and scripts.
Yeah.
So that's the ability to leverage your time, and yet the next hire is also an admin. That's what's specified in the MREA, and the reason it is because if your first admin leaves, you don't want the job back, right? So it's layering in protection so that that doesn't happen, and your first hire actually hires that second admin. So if we're not taking them to CV, they're not gonna end up hiring talent or understand the full process of what that looks like to do a proper hire in our system. So that's leverage for you so that you then don't do the hiring on that side. And that's what CV is, really teaching you how to hire talent. What does that structure look like? What do you do after you've hired them, right? What does 3 years down the road look like?
Yeah, exactly. What makes
And
you
using
run
the
out the door?
And using the KPA for it too.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
The Keller personality. Ah.
yes, which is a game changer. And what I will say is that
I have one. I don't think, I
Same, yeah.
just don't know the acronym.
the KPA is 25% of the hiring process. And yet I will tell you, that particular assessment, which is incredible, if you follow the system and do it right, you will end up with talent. And it will also allow you the ability to truly see whether or not, you know, yes, this person can do the skills, yes, they seem like they're a match, and yet are you in alignment with values?
Right.
Which is the biggest aspect. You look at somebody like Lance Loken, for instance. I think last year did 2,100 something, 2,163 units.
His team,
His team.
his team.
How big is his team?
2,100?
80, no, he's at 85 now. 85 people on his team, and he's almost at a 1-to-1
range.
ratio, admin to agent. So
Wow.
that 85
Oh,
includes the administrative hub.
Right.
1-to-1,
And-
wow.
Yeah, he's almost at a 1-to-1.
So you have 40 agents.
Yes, doing that amount of
machine.
production.
Right, okay.
Factory.
It is, but it's a really well-run machine.
Yeah.
geez Louise.
Like, he's hiring 18 months out because he understands how long it takes to bring.
Where is he?
He's in Houston. how much time it takes to bring somebody into the business and ramp them up to the level of expectation that you expect them to be at. So he's constantly 18 months out hiring and building his pipeline. So when you're doing that, what he's learned in that process is every time that somebody has left the team where it wasn't a fit, it was because of a misalignment in values.
Wow.
It had nothing to do with the skill set and entirely with the values. So he's honed down exactly what his values represent for him and his team, to the point that every single person on the team operates in those values. And when you're following the process, just like he does, he has 85 people that need to say yes on a hire before someone actually comes in.
Oh.
Yeah.
Everybody's got an interview?
So the
Everybody's
value,
got to have some sort of interaction with that person. Yes, because part of the CV is the group, right?
Wow.
Group interview.
Mm-hmm.
Got time.
Yeah, they spend a lot of time, and yet, you know, you look at 2,100 units, that's what, an average of 45 to 50 per
Yeah,
agent?
units, yeah.
Yeah, and their average price is like
200,000.
200, yeah.
Yeah, right? So imagine a team operating at 50 deals per agent. How many agents in the Toronto Real Estate Board don't do more than 12 a year?
A lot.
Right?
majority.
Majority.
No more than that.
Yeah.
So he's that dedicated to the hiring process, and that's the type of results that show up. Now,
That's a much smaller
Yeah.
market. But
Yeah.
if they can do it there,
oh yeah. I
you
mean,
just need the right person.
it's incredible. It's incredible. So values is a huge piece of that. And having clarity as a leader as to what that looks like. Because we already know that we don't attract who we want, we attract who we are. So we have to have clarity around who we are, just like in the compass exercise, in order to even know the type of individual that we can attract and that we do want to be in business with. Because we are responsible for them.
Now, is one of the creating your values and coming up with your values, is that part of one of the models in the MRE or?
It's
Where
not,
we-
no. If you have a MAPS coach, I would do a values elicitation with them to bring that up.
None of us have maths coaches though.
Oh, break my heart.
Irene
I
does.
meant like the, you know, but if you don't, what else, what can we do without a maths coach?
Come to my full day course. Because you'll understand what your values are in the full day course.
Do you have one coming up?
Yeah, so the closest one I have is Advantage on Friday,
This Friday.
this Friday. The next one is the KWYP one, which is June 25th. If you're not a YP member, get in contact with a YP member and come as their guest. Young professionals.
Professionals.
Your,
Your,
email also virtual a lot of the time. We're gonna come to someone's mom or dad.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
Like when I go to
I'm
some bar.
I'm little
Mom's
Johnny's
here.
mom. What's the course called?
Building a real estate empire, I think is what they called it.
That's your course on Friday?
That's, I've got a flyer at home. That's what that is.
That's what that
I
is.
kept it, it's on my desk. I'm like, this looks like something that's
Yes,
important.
that's what
I
that
haven't
is.
looked at.
So it's called, sorry, building?
A real estate
I
empire.
like that.
Yeah,
Okay, it's a one day.
it's a one-day course, 9 to 3. That's the next one that's slated on. So in that course, we'll go through a process to elicit your values. If you can't make it to that course, then, you know, other possibilities would be even meeting, let's say, with another agent in the office or another office that seems to be successful in attracting talent and picking their brain and seeing what process they went through. And at the course, I'm actually going to be raffling off a free coaching session. So if you're there, then, and you win the session, then that would be something we would dig deeper into on the coaching.
Just asking Bridget or Nicoletta to scan that flyer over.
Yeah, and I think they just posted it on the Facebook. It should be in my
Okay.
thing for sure, for the signing up for the tickets. So values, that's the next piece, and having clarity around that. Knowing what's non-negotiable for you. So you can ensure whoever you do get into business with there along the same thought lines.
Printout doesn't have autocorrect.
And look at that, we've spent half an hour already, we haven't even talked about talent yet. I mean, all of this is just all the things yeah, it's all of the things we generally don't think about, right? Most of the time when we look to hire, it's just like, I have a need, let's find a person. And yet, that first administrative hire literally will make or break your business. Because talent looks to be around talent. They're a magnet for talent. If you bring in non-talent into that role, they will literally repel everybody else. And talent knows when they're around non-talent.
It's like one bad apple.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So that first hire is incredibly important. Not only in the fact that it's going to dictate whether or not you get anybody else to work with you.
Right, exactly how you next.
Yep. It's also going to be whether or not your business increases to the extent that it should with that hire.
Well, that's,
I mean, on average, that first administrative hire should get you an additional 25 units. And most of the time, we don't look at that hire with an ROI attached.
Like 25 units
so where did
a
that?
year?
Isn't that so arbitrary? What do you mean? Like,
So if you think about it,
Free
average,
up, that should free up for two more per month.
yeah.
Two more deals per month.
So on average, a real estate transaction is about 50 hours, right?
Sorry, say that again.
An average real estate transaction is about 50 hours. When you look at the lead generation, everything else, and then the administrative aspect, taking it from beginning to end, right? Because you've got the marketing, the social media, the flyers, the setting up the open house, doing all the paperwork, right? It's about 50 hours. Now, 40 hours of that is admin. And 10 hours is actually falls into your 5 things. So on a, let's say $15,000 GCI transaction, right? Your dollar per hour doing it on your own is $300. When you hire your first admin, they take that 40 hours. So now instead of just doing 10 hours, you've got an extra 40 hours to go do more of your 5 things. So by doing that, that gives you more time to do what actually creates money, and your hourly rate goes up to $1,500 an hour.
Sorry, what are the 5 things again?
Lead generate,
Yeah,
lead follow up,
yeah,
go on appointments,
yeah.
negotiate contracts, and role play some scripts.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
So in doing that, that's where on average they get you an additional 25 units. Because literally that hire takes away all the excuse of not being able to do what you know you could do to make money.
or a percentage of it. Like, you know, I do really well, but I only do maybe 15 units a year. So all I want out of my admin is if I could do an extra 1 or 2 attributed initially on the first year. That's
1
kinda
or
what I'm
2
thinking.
per month.
Yeah.
No, like I don't do that on my own, so I wouldn't, how do I?
What do
if
you
you're
wanna get up
But
to?
the point is,
The
if
point
you're
is
Like
to
doing,
get
that
up
would be
to
like
that.
tripling what I do.
but if, the-
Yeah, so?
Kelly's point is, if you're doing
big,
all
baby.
of that stuff now,
Yeah,
right, you're
yeah.
doing all of the
Yeah,
admin
once
and
the
everything
training.
else, once that gets done by somebody else, you will have all of that time in your month to regenerate however you do it, even if it's socializing, you're networking.
Right.
So by taking those little activities off your plate, you're not doing them anymore, so you have more time to find more business, or
Yeah,
just
that's
go
true.
sailing, I don't know, whatever you like.
Right.
Mhm.
To do your 5 parts of your business while you're on your sailboat.
Yeah. Now, don't forget, that's not the only ROI creation from that hire.
Right, I hear you.
Right. They're also gonna be streamlining all of your systems, because let's be honest, if we
Well,
were
that
really
one's
great
it.
at systems,
Right.
we wouldn't be an agent, right? We would be on the administrative side. So they're gonna streamline all your systems and actually increase the effectiveness of your systems. They're gonna be doing their one thing, which, let me ask, what do you think an admin's one thing is?
Set everything up. Started.
One thing?
One thing.
Admin?
Yep, what's their one thing?
Free you up.
Yeah, to give leverage to you.
Yeah.
To give leverage, okay. What else? Any other guesses?
To take over your 80%.
Okay, take over 80%.
Sorry, what was your question?
What's the admin's one thing?
To organize all these little bits and pieces.
Create leverage.
To take all the small tasks away from the agent so we can concentrate on what we need to concentrate on.
Yeah.
But they also have to cover their income by a certain percent, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why we look at the
As far as
returns.
Right,
grow your
that's so
business,
scary.
as far as lead gen
Yeah,
and
so,
referrals or whatever they're doing.
absolutely. Would it shock you if I told you that their one thing is the database?
Is what?
Actually, you're
That
absolutely.
is it?
Yeah, it is, 100%. Database.
Oh, database.
That's 100, that's
What
what
do you
we've been
mean
doing.
database? Database is such a
Your
big thing.
CRM.
Yeah.
What do you mean by database?
So from a database, they're the ones that are gonna be running your database. A true, highly functioning
That's like Sean.
admin person, all you would have to do is literally come in, here's your call list, this is what you're doing for the day. So they are the ones that are organizing, setting up the touch campaigns, making the calls, getting the feedback, setting up your marketing, right? Your tagging system, looking at ways to effectively increase A, the size of it, and B, the return on it. Because you could literally figure out how big your database needs to be based on your goals.
Yeah.
And I see databases right now that are operating at a GCI of about 250. And literally with a proper hire, could get a database to about 1.5 million in GCI. If you've got talent in place. Now,
Cool.
organizing the systems and working on the 80% and doing all of that stuff, that's there. That just automatically happens because their one thing is the database.
Yeah, that's very clear.
Mhm. So again, the ROI shows up there because now you're increasing referrals,
Absolutely.
right? So the 25 units is entirely doable and it's average. And again, we've got to approach that relationship with that type of thinking because whoever joins our team, we are the leadership lid of that team. So our thinking is going to limit their thinking. And if we're not thinking an ROI like that, then they have nothing to step into to create that. Right? If we go in and say, you know, I just need you to do everything that I don't want to do, then that's all we're gonna do.
And pick up my laundry.
I mean, that's all they're gonna do. So our thinking is really what dictates the possibility of that hire. That's why we named this Make the First One Count, right? Because it's a game changer when you've got talent in place. Absolutely.
How long from the time we start? Is it a year before you expect that? Like, because there's the whole ramp up and training and learning and, unless you hire like a superstar like Sean or something that's already done it. But if you're training someone, like
Yeah.
at what point do you expect?
It depends on where they're starting, right? If it's a brand new person, I do expect changes within the first 90 days.
Okay.
Are they measurable changes in the sense of closings? Probably not.
Right.
Are they measurable changes in respects to how am I spending my time? How am I, how have my systems changed in the 90 days? Because I mean, my hope is that you've hired them with experience, that they've at least been in some sort of administrative environment and have had the ability of increasing effectiveness and efficiency in whatever industry they were in. So if that's already in place, that's gonna happen with your business. So increase in time, absolutely. I would even want to see changes in my P&L. Because a great admin, which most agents don't do this, is share your profit and loss statement and actually have them run it. Because how can they check the ROI on what you're spending your money on if you don't give them access to it? Right? So I would want changes in that as well within the first 90 days.
Yes, that means most agents need to have a P&L.
Yes,
Step one.
yes. Now, it's okay if you don't have a P&L, and yet allow your person to create it,
Yeah.
right, and run it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. I mean, you go onto kellerinc.com, INK, and go into the MREA book, there's a downloadable chart of accounts already there. So literally, they would just need access to what you're spending on and plop it in, and the P&L's there. At the
Where is
bare minimum. kellerinc.com.
Yeah, I don't do.
We'll do
Heidi, do you do that?
What?
You track all of you, profit things like every week, or you like me and when you go, here's all the things.
Got a box.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think maybe the data did that too.
We're
And
slowly,
no,
slowly getting
my
all
daughter
of
set up
our
envelopes in
newer
my car.
PW peeps into the business
That.
building mentality.
My taxes.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, an
She
easy
bought
thing,
some
I mean, QuickBooks is $29 a month, right? It's very simple. You can even scan your receipt when you're out buying something and it just automatically goes in
Yeah,
the
that's
system. Your DOO wouldn't even have to ask you for it. It connects to your bank automatically, so all the things funnel in. So it's very easy, streamlined. Your accountant will love you if you use that because they can get access to it.
You're all light years ahead of me, so sorry, what's that called?
QuickBooks.
QuickBooks.
It's good for.
Yeah.
It's for everybody, it's not
It's
just
for, yeah, it's for everybody. That is the simplest thing you can do.
Monthly then.
And it-
And then you don't really need a bookkeeper, I guess, because you're doing.
No, that is your
right?
book.
That
As
is
long
your
as
book.
somebody knows how to run the system.
Yeah,
So have you run the system.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That's
Well,
true.
yeah.
Well, just, I mean, very much.
I'm laughing, remember?
We have all these
Emma said, like,
listings,
they
but,
first came out, like,
you know, we pay for
25 years
staging, we pay
ago.
for this, we pay for that, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, we're like, oh, we get all this commission, but I don't even think, I forget how much I spend on.
Yeah.
So when you, I mean, that's the whole point, like,
Exactly, I
when,
don't either, I just do what is required. and then-
Right.
And
Like,
then
I'm in
hope at
home
the end of the year
sense,
you've
I'm
actually made some money.
Yeah,
one of the things when I was in Austin for the tech thing, like when Command's up and fully running, if you sit down and really think about how much you're spending to run your business, right? It's $25 for this, it's 20 for that, it's 30 for that. It starts to add up, it's like hundreds of dollars a month
Oh,
that
yeah.
you can start eliminating, right? So seeing it on paper and a
My credit card
P&L.
statement, I go.
mm-hmm.
Me too,
Yeah,
I don't even do that.
but
But
then
I,
you add it
it
up.
makes sense to get a pillow, I'm just like, whatever, and at the end of the day, it's like,
Yeah,
you
Yeah.
know.
but when you start thinking about what your like, your
I know,
monthly
that's what I'm
recurring
saying, people think,
fees
oh,
are.
we make so much money, like, we don't at the end of the
Gross,
day.
yes.
Gross,
Right.
yeah, so we pay a lot
It is
out.
gross.
Exactly.
It is gross, absolutely. It's an
Now,
understatement.
there's a great book that you should be reading right now. It's called Profit First. And this conversation is happening in Gary's Mastermind group and with the RDs. It's a great read.
It's a big Keller thing too, actually.
And it talks you through the process of how to structure your money. Because most of the time operate in GCI, right? And yet the goal is net profit, right?
It
I
really
mean,
is.
that is the goal,
Yeah.
right? So this book takes you through how to really structure that where you're actually starting with net profit. And how do you work that back, right? Because most of us take GCI, then we set our budget, and whatever's left over is what we get.
Yeah.
In this book, you actually start with profit.
How much you want in your pocket.
Yes.
The end.
What's
Then
your
you
net?
add on everything, all your expenses.
Your expenses is the last thing you look at. It's actually what's left over. That's your budget. And that's what you work with. So in having a P&L and actually having an admin running that P&L, you have the ability to hold your money accountable. Right? And if things aren't creating a return like you expect, you can change it in the moment versus finding out a year, 2, 3 years down the road that, oh, by the way, I've been throwing money at this and I really haven't gotten anything from it. Right?
We ages ago cut out our Toronto Star and Globe Mail ads, Ages and Ages. And a couple of months ago, we cut the Globe West Villager and the East York Mirror and all of that, everything. Because they were bringing some people into open houses, but they never brought us any money at all. And we were running like almost $1,000 a month for them. with all our listings. And it's like, you know what, if it's not bringing business in,
I know,
right?
I know, even the
I can
top
put that
teams.
towards $12,000 towards a marketing campaign or something,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Top teams right now are even doing P&Ls just for the listing side of the business and then the buyer side of the business.
Yeah, we're doing that too. We're splitting them up.
Yeah, because as you grow your teams, you're obviously going to be bringing agents on. And what they've discovered in the top groups is that the listing side of the business was actually floating the business because they were losing money on the buyer side
On the buyer side.
So.
because of the splits with agents and everything else on the team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But even with the listings, you have to put out all the expenses. And
Yeah.
still, they made more money with the,
yeah, on the listing side.
Because you're not giving away, well, giving away very little.
Yes, on the
That's-
listing side.
That's down the road.
Yeah, that's
down the road.
And yet this first hire is the one that's going to set up what that looks like for you to be able to grow into that type of conversation, for you to even understand what is my value proposition and what should that structure look like versus, oh, this agent would be a great agent on the team, let's get into business, we'll just do it 50-50, that's what everyone else does. And then, you know, you find out 2 years down the road that you're losing money on that one conversation because it wasn't structured right to be a win-win for them and for the organization.
No, good.
Okay, so we've talked about vision and we've talked about value proposition. Here's what I'll say around the value proposition. When you go into a listing appointment, what do you do in a listing appointment, generally? Do you go in and say, here's all my stuff, this is what I do, this is why you should hire me? Or do you go in and actually ask questions, what's important to you,
Yeah.
what are you looking to get out of it, right? I mean, that's usually how we do listing appointments.
Right.
For some reason, that doesn't translate to a value proposition conversation with talent.
It's not?
It should be the same questions, you mean?
Yes. Usually what we see is, here's everything that I can provide you, and this is why you should join me. Versus actually doing a needs analysis conversation, just like we would with a seller. What's important to you? What are you looking for? What's your current challenge? What's your goal? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What's important about joining a team? What are your expectations of a team? Because usually with the seller, we find out what's important to them and then we pick the one thing that's going to help them get to what's important. We don't talk about everything we do, we talk about what's important for them. It's the same thing with talent.
Is that it, Mike?
Yes, profit first, yes. We actually had the author in Keller Williams teaching it. So from a value proposition perspective, yes, you want to build out a structure around that, right? As to what that looks like. And yet, the most important aspect of it is the questions that you ask before you even open something like that up. Because again, if you're going to go down that CV process, which takes time, right? If you're going to
CV, which is the.
yeah, it takes time. If you're going to invest that amount of time in someone who could potentially join your team at the very end of it, asking those questions will be the decision factor as to whether or not you even take that step. It's like you're screening, right? It's where the first alignment shows up. So that's the only aspect that I would say around the value prop that I see most people miss. That's really And by the way, if you do already have an admin on the team, teaching them how to have that conversation too is important.
Yeah.
Because
Teaching you how to have that conversation with
Anybody.
The next of you?
Yeah, I mean, if you're out and about, every time that I am out and about, the first question I ask when I see somebody that's interesting to myself is, do I want to be in business with this person? And if I do, I'm going to go through those questions. You know, because I want to get a sense of their thinking, what they're looking to do. Because I'm consistently building a pipeline, just like you do for your listings, as to my future bench for future hires. So that I'm never stuck in a position where somebody quits and now all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, my hair's on fire. Right?
Which is
My world
usually
got
what
rocked.
happens.
Which is usually
with
what
us.
happens.
Or we're such a small group, just so you can even refer if somebody's looking, you know what, I met this great person, I don't need them right now, but.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I have a consistent ad out on Wise Hire, which is one of the things we talk about in the course, which is real estate specific and Keller Williams friendly. They already know our terminology. And if I don't have a specific position open, my ad is very general. It just talks about talent. If I have a specific position open, then I'll tighten it for that particular position. But I always have a funnel of leads coming in, so that for every future position in my organization and current one, I've got at least 5 people in line.
You say you're stringing them along.
Hmm?
You're stringing these guys along.
Yeah, no, it's not about that. Because I may not have a position for them right now,
Oh, okay.
but in true talent, the biggest piece of that is relationship. And it might be someone who's not ready to make a move yet. And yet when they are, I want to be that person that's in that conversation. Because I view them as talent. And a lot of times, somebody that I think is good for a position ends up actually being better for a different position. So it's not like they're just stuck in that one pipeline column. Or I could come across somebody that they might be a fit for.
Just in your HR stuff, when you did the HR.
Yeah.
Right? So it's that whole ability to be consistently in conversation with talent. And I had somebody show up that didn't match any of my positions. And then, you know, just in talking to that person, it was like, oh,
You show up there.
you actually might be good for a different business.
Right.
And made the connection to an allied resource. Now, do you imagine how much that allied resource wants me right now? Right? Because I funnel talent to them. It's going to make a big impact. So that consistent pipeline, we treat it just like we do our real estate business. It's the same thing. Because Gary teaches us we've got 2 roles in our organization. So draw out the triangle. Do you know which triangle I'm referring to?
Leads, listings, leverage?
Yes. Draw out the triangle. So on the bottom is what?
Leads,
Leads.
listings.
And then up the left is
Listings.
Yeah.
Listing, leverage.
listings, and then down the right is leverage. Now take an arrow from leads to listings. So going around the left side of the triangle. That is your job. Now do an arrow from leads to leverage, going up the right side of the triangle.
It's your other job.
That's your business. So from, when you look at, this is always interesting. I challenge you after this to go look at your calendar for the last week. And actually look, how much time have you been spending on the leads, the job side of your business, and how much time you've been spending on the business side of your business. Because leverage is the one thing that actually moves us into being a business owner.
And taking away, like, we're not just letting them use of it.
Yes, yes. Because the left side's working in the business, the right
It'd be
side's
25
working
more
on it.
transactions a year.
Exactly, that's right, so that's in the business, and the
Yeah.
right side is
On the
on
business.
the
Yeah.
business, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
Old. So, the biggest thing that people say, and all the agents that I know from all different companies, the biggest fear, and it says catch-22, I do well, but I'm not making millions, so I'm afraid to pay 40, 50, 60,000, whatever it is, to somebody. So you just do everything yourself. Plus, you don't think you could do it, and you could do it the same way, not that you're so great, but you know, it's your client, so you're afraid to give it away. How do you address that fear and kind of like jumping off the cliff and sort of, like what if,
Can I answer that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Two things. The second part is you have to find the right person.
yes.
That's how you address the fear of I can't let it go. The first part is you have to trust that by having them there, you will do more business. If you don't, that's your fault. When Bridget, so we interviewed Bridget twice, 18 months apart. The first time she said, actually the first time she didn't show up for the interview. Well, she called and canceled the interview because she said, I'm not ready to leave, which was really nice because she didn't spend the time. The second time, she said, what's gonna happen when you guys aren't busy? What's gonna happen to my
Right.
job? And we said, you're here to make sure that we're busy. Because if you have somebody to take 40 out of your 50 hours away, and you're not doing anything with that to make more business, then you shouldn't be in the business, really.
Yeah.
So you take those 40 hours, and we're just using this as an example, right? So you take those 40 hours and you put 30 of them into finding more business, and then you put 10 more of them into socializing and having fun, so you've got more playtime.
Okay.
Or whatever, like don't write down the numbers, you get it in concept, right?
Right. But you see that, is that a common thing that you guys hear?
Oh,
From
absolutely.
other agents?
I don't have
For
enough
sure.
time.
I don't have enough
I don't
money
sure.
to.
I don't have
Sure.
enough money.
Yeah.
I mean, I've even got a slide on it. I've heard them all. What I would,
Isn't it in?
How much do you pay your first admin assistant?
well, I think that depends on the level of talent that you're hiring.
Right.
You know, if you look at unproven talent, let's say just right out of college or university, right? I've seen people start anywhere from 30 to 35. And in regards to the money aspect, what happens is we look at it as a year. It's not a year. There's a reason we have a 30, 60, 90.
Right, that I kind of remember
Yes.
from
Right.
maybe FSO or something.
Yeah.
They just look at it as 3,000 a month,
Yes.
and if that translated to one deal even, right, you know.
Yep.
Instead of like, and you're right. like-
Going at the 50 or 45 or where am I
Right,
gonna
it's
come
like,
up with this
holy
money
shit,
if I'm not making
50,000,
sales?
like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Yep.
But you could also do, I
that's two
mean,
deals.
yeah, this is ahead of the game too, but you could also have like a base plus bonus. Okay, I did 15
Oh,
transactions
exactly.
last year, so your role is to free me up to do more. So your base is this, and if I do 30 transactions, if I do 15
That's
more,
true.
then you get this. If I do 45 more, then you get this,
Mhm.
right? So then you're not putting 60,000 out without having that coming in first.
Right. And yet again, most people have to think of that in terms of ROI, right? Which
Yeah.
most agents don't. They don't attach that my business will increase by this hire. Most of them say my business will be maintained by this hire. It just means I don't have to do all the stuff I don't like to do,
Right.
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at it in terms of 30-day increments, because they don't earn the right for the next 30 days until you see that they've reached the expectations.
Right, after the trading period.
Yeah.
let's say.
The money aspect then becomes a lot smaller. And really where the fear is coming from is the fear of responsibility for another person. That's truly what it is. I mean, we
And
tell
the minutia of
ourselves,
having to deal with them all the time, sometimes it's just, oh, it's just so much easier to do it myself, but it isn't, because you're never getting anywhere.
yes, exactly, exactly.
So that's
And we
kind of where
hire
I'm
so
at.
someone can do it better than us,
Yeah.
right? That's the whole purpose of a hire. We don't hire for someone to maintain it. We hire for them because they're the one person that's their expertise, right? And our expertise is not the systems,
Right.
nor should it be.
Or should it be?
So, so when you strip that away, you know, then it's really looking at it for what it is. This is the investment. This is the expected ROI. This is what will happen to my business by that hire. This is what I'll be able to get to do having that hire. And am I okay to say no to all of that? Because of the fear.
Thanks for coming.
Right?
Something that says, I go home and look after my daughter.
Thanks for spending some time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Meg.
Claudia's a sponge, she just comes in.
Yes, now I absorb so much, so I have to wring it out.
Great way. That's great. Oh my goodness.
Then see where it will dribble.
Bye,
Anyway,
Claudia.
see you.
See
Bye.
you.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
She's amazing, she joined us 6 months ago, so?
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's
she's
gone so
just,
fast. I can't believe I'm
she's
a year
so,
already.
she just wants to learn everything.
Now, you know, there is the aspect of if you're not doing enough business, right? Let's say, 15 deals and yet your average GCI is $6,000.
Right.
Right? So bringing in a very talented person at that price point isn't going to work. And yet you have the option of a virtual assistant.
Yeah. But if
Because,
it's 25 grand.
yeah, I mean, there's virtual assistants right now. You can hire, I had one on my team for $1,000 US a month. So that's like what, $1,350, $1,400 bucks a month. That's like, what, 15 grand a year? 16 grand a year?
Mm-hmm.
And they worked 40 hours a week, doing all of my administrative stuff. They could still work on my systems. They could still get everything in line. They could still do my social media. They could still do a lot of the things that an admin can do. Now, they're not going to be my future director of operations. And yet, it still allowed me the time to be able to get rid of the time sucking things and do more business to get me to the point where I could bring in a full-time person on site. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of different companies for
Yeah,
that.
so if you're bringing in an admin for, say, a part-time basis,
Mhm.
do you pay them plus you have to deduct all the things, or are you paying it as an expense, as they're a contractor?
Most administrators are not comfortable with independent contractor status.
And neither will be CRA.
Yeah.
So you have to go through, you can do it for a short time,
Mhm.
but, yeah. I mean, if you're gonna be doing it with your daughter, you
Mhm.
can have a little bit of an arrangement,
Mhm.
but if you're gonna go whole hog, don't have them as a contractor.
No.
Because CRA's been really cracking down, especially on that.
Mhm.
You gotta do your deductions, you gotta pay CPP and EI and all that stuff. It's actually, you know what,
I'm
it's
just like,
really.
Well,
they
like
should-
with Mark, I've been getting, he charges me,
Yeah,
he
but
gives
that's
me his hours,
different.
and he
He's-
charges HST, and that's
He's
what I pay.
licensed, that's
Yes.
fine, he's licensed is a different story.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm just
Because
thinking
when
if I'm,
Bridget got licensed,
Yeah.
we switched her from employee to independent contractor.
yeah, because she has
She has her license, she does this, she does that, anything deal oriented, the brokerage pays her, not us, right? It's a different story.
Yeah.
Whereas Nicoletta, she's an employee,
Mm-hmm.
so every month I gotta send $900 to the government.
you do it monthly?
What other way do people do it? Like,
Well, they try and
So
pay employees.
they said if it's under 30 hours or something, you can just.
You'd have to double check with your labor laws and what's allowable, especially with your accountant. What I would say is most are comfortable on the employee side. And if you have QuickBooks, QuickBooks does your payroll for you.
Does it?
Yeah, I think it's an extra $20 a month. And you can do all the, figure out your remittance, pay them, you can pay them through EFT, but it gives you the amount after the deductions, it tracks all of it. All of it's there. So literally the only thing you have to do is just pay your taxes at the end of every month, your remittance, and that's it.
Before the 15th of every
Yeah.
month where they charge you.
So you don't have to think about it. It does all the work. You just have to make the payment.
Mm-hmm.
So
You know what
Can
though?
you have them as
Like-
not an employee and just have it as a,
As an
like
expense.
my concierge girl, like she just charges me what I do.
Well, but then that's different, she
Can I
has
do
other
some-
clients. You're mixing up positions. So your concierge girl has all kinds of different clients.
Yes.
And she is not an
Good point.
employee of any of them, she's a
No,
contractor
no,
for
she's
all
business.
of them. So she invoices you and you pay her HST and that's it.
Right.
We're talking about somebody coming in to your office and
The
nobody
standard
else
is give her
is.
like, we don't even have a system, I'm just giving her cash and, not
She
cash,
give you
but
an
La, 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 la,
transfer.
la, la, la.
No, we haven't set anything up, it's just gonna be like.
Okay.
like-
I just
Like
had
I
Mark
pay my
claim it.
kid.
Is she gonna claim it?
So
I don't think so.
This
We're
is another
going-
topic,
I
but
would
this is
not
great
fund
for
it.
Yeah,
Ally.
you can claim it if she doesn't.
What's that?
For Alan, when Alan's
He's gonna
coming.
have to claim it.
These are
Yes.
questions that Alan
Yes.
can possibly answer
Like
for us,
Brendan
because he's the tax catcher.
And yes, and we're
That's
getting
right.
into
No, I have to claim
the
it.
how.
Yes.
Okay.
Kelly's here for
Yes,
the
Kelly, sorry.
why.
Yeah, okay.
Why and the what, the how, that's.
Yeah,
We'll
well.
do that out.
Well, that's a big part
Because
of
you
hiring
can't-
the first of man.
You
but
can't
yeah.
figure out the how until you know the what.
The why,
The why and the who,
the why,
Right.
the where, the why.
right? Because the
Yeah,
how
I
is
figured this
easy.
all out.
The
Yeah,
why and the who is the toughest one.
yeah.
I have the who, which is, and she's been asking me questions, so. She goes, well, you're gonna charge me when you employ, right?
Yeah, well, I need to figure it out, maybe to Alan or other people that have any needs or
Yeah,
something.
I would, what I would do is talk to someone that's their speciality.
Yeah,
Yes.
next Wednesday,
Yeah.
1:30.
Next Wednesday?
What I find is people go to other teams and ask what they're doing, and they're actually not doing the right way, and then we duplicate the wrong way.
Mhm.
So I'd rather you
You're
go
right,
with
it's
someone
another
who can,
thing, yeah.
who can give you sound advice
Yes.
on how that should be set up.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would say is, if you look at any other business in any other industry,
Oh, I've got that training.
what would they do? Right? And most would not do what we tend to want to do when it comes to that relationship.
Right.
Okay.
So,
I have to work it out with me.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you've got options there in who you bring in. And what I would say is, you know, when you look at that first hire, generally we look at them as, like I said before, maintaining the business, right? Can they do the stuff that I already do? So I don't have to do it. And yet, when you follow the MREA model, the flow of the charts, the actual organizational charts, those first hire, that director of operations, is actually on the chairman's path to be a future CEO.
Right.
So if you looked at that first hire as, could this person be my future CEO? Be a very different interview process,
Right.
right? And that literally is the biggest game changer for most agents. Because if they look at them that way, and I love this, I'm like, if you knew that in the beginning and you look at the current people on your team, would you rehire them?
Most of the time, the answer is no.
Yep, most of the time it's no. So from a thinking perspective, it's important for me, for you guys to really look at that. Because like I said, that hire, right, is what dictates the trajectory of your business. And you think it would be you guys, and yet it's not. Because their one thing is database, and they end up spending more time with your clients than you do. Which is a good thing.
You want them to.
Yes, absolutely.
Your June 25th.
You want to watch? It's like we're the doctors delivering a baby.
Really?
They come prep it.
You just walk in with the coats on.
That's right.
You can't get in
Get
as
that
a guest of
baby out
somebody?
there.
No, I
Sell a sucker.
Facebook
Sell
him
it.
and said, can I come as your guest?
It's like,
And he said,
yeah, you and I should
unfortunately
talk
not.
too.
We should,
Yeah.
yes, we
Oh,
should.
maybe he's already got somebody.
The same.
No, he
Yeah.
said, like, unfortunately, this is only for YP
It sounds like we
members.
work with this.
And it's capped at 25.
Oh, so we've already hit the sold out mark.
Yes,
I knew that was
sooner
gonna
than
happen.
later, but yeah.
It's okay. I'll find you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's let Kelly talk. She's here for us.
All right.
So what happens when you're looking at a person and you think they're gonna be your CEO and then they end up not being?
That's the purpose of the bench. Because
Sorry, the purpose of the,
bench or the
You're always
pipeline.
building your
Pipeline,
bench.
okay.
You're always building your bench. Because here's the thing, people join an organization generally for opportunity. I mean, they look for growth, they look for development, especially talent. They're gonna push the bar and look for ways that they can get closer to their vision. So that usually means that they're moving up in an organization, they're getting more responsibility. And in order for that to happen, we have to have a bench to follow them. Otherwise, we're limiting their progress and therefore limiting our own, right? Because we're keeping them capped at a certain level. So the bench is what allows us the opportunity to show up as a leader and follow through on what we said what we were gonna do.
Mhm.
That your vision, what you said you wanted, is actually gonna happen and we're gonna follow that path. So your people model is very important when it comes to that. Even on the agent side. Like Lance Loken I mentioned before, right? He's got about, I think it's breakdowns like 48 agents. And yet he did 2,163 units. You look at Bob Lucido, he did 22 something, but he has 140 people on
He
his
has, yeah, he's got.
I just want one.
Well, he's also expansion.
I don't want a huge team.
Yeah, he's also expansion. And yet his people model is more people, less production per person.
But higher average price,
Yes.
considerably.
Lance is less people, more production per person, right? So that people model that you're gonna build out in your vision is also gonna dictate the timeline as to when your operations person can grow.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, it's based on production and income. So that's important to have that type of conversation and be able to follow through on what you said. You know, you hired that person because you were able to say, yes, I can help you get to what you want. And follow through on it based on the plan that you've made, which allows for that movement in the organization. And again, that can't happen without a bench. The worst thing you can do as a leader is hold somebody in a position because you have no one to replace them. And I can guarantee you talent, when they show up in your world, will start looking for the replacement day one. No. And so should you. Does that answer the question?
What was the, I don't remember.
I don't
what
even
question.
know.
I was listening.
Didn't you ask the question?
I think we're talking about.
I'm typing like crazy.
Why or what do you like?
Trying
by
to
bench?
listen and type.
I think that was the
Right.
question.
The bench, yes.
Yeah, it's,
Bench related.
the bench is a huge part. And it's easy. I mean, you use a pipeline right now for your business. It's formatted the exact same way. I mean, I'm sure you rank your leads based on when you think they're gonna list or buy, hopefully, right? So that you know you've got however many people you need per month to transact. You rank the same way with talent. How many months do you think it'll be before you're in business with this person, based on your plan? Rank them the same way, same spreadsheet. Okay. So, from a talent perspective, I wonder if this will come up. I don't know, will come up.
So what's going on? Were you supposed to have?
I have all nice fancy animations. I worked
It's
so
not
hard on.
working?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not?
No.
So how
Should
come?
we get Andy maybe, or?
Yeah, it's not working. There should be something that pops up.
Did you
Want me to
email
get
the
Andy?
presentation?
Yeah,
I
I
don't know
have
if
a
it filtered
PowerPoint.
it out or something.
I don't know.
Do you have
Should
it
have.
on like a USB or anything?
No, I didn't,
Do you have your laptop?
Does Andy know that? Does Andy know this? Oh, you know what, here, let me,
yeah, I don't know if he knows it.
hang on, let me actually open it up, here, let me see if I have it online. It'll be a little smaller.
It was just a chart from career visioning. Have you all taken career visioning?
No.
No, okay. So first thing you write down before anything else, take CV.
Yes.
That's an absolute must.
I'm still trying to navigate the Keller Williams website now. It's going into the resources just to try and find when, because I heard the career visioning. But I can't find a schedule or this course on when it's available.
Your region should have provided you with a list of the times.
Yeah, I've got it on there.
Yeah.
How do I open it up?
There's too many KW websites, I know.
So it's KW Connect, yeah.
There.
I'll show you.
Define KWP Connect, it's national.
Okay.
And Command.
See, it's working on yours.
How far from you?
All right, keep going.
I found it,
Elm,
I just saw it.
Oh, I saw it.
So closer to Avenue.
kind of in the middle, like a block from the school.
Mm.
Was it?
There's a lot of
Think it'd be a good rental?
Oh, Christ, yeah.
Here,
What'd you
there we
get for
go.
a rent?
Yep, click. It'll pop up. There we go.
Oh,
Here we go. Okay.
So this is the chart from CV, and it talks about the difference of talent versus non-talent. So talent will find you solutions. You know the minute you're getting your job back when they ask you, what should I do? Before they've even looked for an answer,
Okay.
okay?
What you do,
Now-
open that door.
Non-talent will bring you problems,
Right.
right? That's what they do. They attempt to give you the job back. Talent will share your goals and fulfill your needs as a natural byproduct of fulfilling their own. That's the alignment of visions. Non-talent doesn't fulfill your needs and ends up giving you pieces of their job,
Right,
right?
back.
So talent knows what they want and is actively searching to know. They're very growth-minded, learning-based. Non-talent doesn't know what they want and isn't searching. They're just a maintainer. Talent pushes you, non-talent requires pushing. So you know you've got non-talent in the role if you're consistently having to go and say, okay, what have you done today? You know, was this completed? You know, consistently going back and checking in.
No, I haven't. That's not an MREA, that's
No.
in the CV. I've got
Yeah, this
that.
is in the CV.
Yeah,
Because
'cause
I
I
can
took it.
send you Kelly's whole presentation.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and then you can.
Can you send it to all?
I can.
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as you don't share it.
Nope.
Yeah.
Talent is continually raising the bar. Non-talent may not know where the existing bar is set or even know what bar you're talking about.
Huh, yeah.
That's a big one. Talent demands to be associated with talent and attracts talent to them. Non-talent doesn't care who they spend time with and repels talent from them.
Yeah, because of their lead out
Yeah,
negativity.
yeah. Talent talks the language of actions and results, and non-talent, when they try to talk action results, they can't back it up. Now that aspect there, you can identify in the CV through the process, right? Because have you ever had somebody that was an awesome talker that came in and you were just blown away and like,
I think we might
have some
right?
And then you'll learn about it and you're like,
We sure do.
Yeah, and then you
Always
actually, you get them, they're like, yes, let me come in, and then they everything they said
You know,
doesn't show
like,
up.
for a long time. Do you
Yeah.
remember Mo's example of that gentleman that she wanted to hire and
Yep.
didn't follow the process?
Yep.
Yeah, Mo shared a really great story with us last week. I can't remember, it was a regional director that she was looking to hire, and he came in and he was dapper and he was gorgeous and he was smart and he knew what to say. And she was just like, oh, you're terrific. And she said she was so tempted to skip the CV process and just hire him, and then she thought, well, I'm the CEO of this company, I can't do that. So she went through the first level of referrals. You know how, you probably don't know this. In career visioning, you have 3 levels of referrals. The first one, they're always going to give you people that they like. Right?
Mhm.
And then that person, you say, so who else should I talk to about this person? And then you talk to that person and go, who else should I talk to about this person? Because then you're getting people who aren't connected to that person at all.
And of course, the
Right.
first level is like.
Yeah.
Exactly, so
Yeah.
she said, the first level obviously were all his references who told her that he was amazing. The second level were judges.
I think judges was the third.
Judges was the third, and
Yeah.
the second level were lawyers.
Yeah,
And it turned out that he was like a huge con man.
mm-hmm.
yeah,
And-
the third level.
Yeah. Yeah, and she said, thank goodness I followed the process, because he had apparently bilked people out
Oh, yeah,
of millions of dollars.
yeah. Yeah,
If it's too good to be true, look into it.
And that's,
Because
that happens with like anything in life, like when I've income property.
absolutely.
The one time you do not do a credit check on a tenant, it's going to be your worst nightmare tenant, right?
so that's really what I mean by backing up, right? Like that's what the CV process saves you from getting the business with someone like that. So this is just the first couple levels of the MREA, right? So you've got your 2 hires, the lead admin and the TC. Because your first hire is going to do everything, and as you get more business, which is expected, then you start seeing specialization.
Yeah, so what does the transaction coordinator do?
So the lead admin is the one that's probably going to be dealing with the listings, right up into contract, and the transaction coordinator is the one that's going to help with the closings. So they take it from when it actually sells all the way through to to the end. So it splits it up. And eventually it'll split into 3, and as you get bigger and bigger, it'll even split out even more than that. So in looks of finding talent, I mentioned wisehire.com, right? That funnels to, I think, 65 different sites, including ZipRecruiter, Indeed, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that. And it brings it all into one spot. And it has a pipeline function. And it lists them automatically. And ranks them. Oh yeah. It does them. And ranks them based on compatibility to the role. So a lot of times, you know, we don't like hiring because, I mean, we're putting these ads all over the place. It's a mess trying to sort through everything. So this takes a lot of the work off. I had a MAPS coach, Olivia Manson. She was in charge of recruiting for her team. So prior to WiseHire, she did 184 interviews in a 30-day period. Yeah, this is all she did. And she ended up hiring 4 people. She got on to WiseHire, did 30 interviews and hired 6.
Wow. So it does have filters where you're just.
Absolutely. So you imagine the amount of time it saved her. Which takes away, again, the reason of I don't have time to hire.
Right.
So there's that, there's, you know, your sphere and your allied resources is a huge piece. Most of the time I see people not talking to their database with the fact they're looking for talent.
All of our people came from referrals
Yeah.
from other realtors and other companies who said, shh, they're gonna leave anyway, so they might as well go work with you.
Yeah. I mean, they're a huge resource. They are meant to be our raving fans. So why wouldn't we go to our raving fans who know us best to help us find talent? There are some teams where they actually have in their allied resources contract that there's a link in the mortgage broker's email signature and the lawyer's email signature about if you're looking for a career move, click here. And it funnels those people back to the team's database. And that's an expectation in the relationship. And that's a different conversation around allied resource expectations. But that's a huge pool that we don't necessarily tap into. And then, of course, outside the industry. Most of us think that we need to hire somebody with experience. And yet, most of the time, we end up hiring bad habits based on where they came from.
What they were doing for somebody else.
Yeah, and usually they far outweigh the experience they bring. So there are a lot of teams that are finding huge talent outside of the real estate industry. You know, in the banking industry, the corporate world, even universities and colleges. I mean, there are people going there to learn business administration and HR and all that kind of stuff that are expecting to come out to get a job making $50,000, $60,000 a year, first year. They come with huge experience, unproven experience, and yet they've got the right mindset and capability to apply that to any business.
Right.
We just don't make the connection that also includes real estate.
It's also a good conversation to have, even going to your sphere, like your database of your potential customers, your clients. You're kind of showing them, you're getting to know them a little bit better, like if you know what they do for business, and it's also communicating that you're growing and you're efficient. You've got this like it's a good, it's another way to
Promote yourself.
and to reach out without saying, hey, you're ready to sell or buy,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And a lot of people are afraid of, well, what if one of my clients say they want to work for me? I don't ever want to be put in a position to say no, right? But that's the power of the CV process. Because if you do it right, they're going to come to a no anyways.
I had one of our very, very dear clients, she was downsized, she was 51. And I, love her to death. And she said, you know what, it was like she was about a year into not finding another job because she was overqualified for everything she was applying for. And she said, what if I get into real estate? And I'm thinking, oh, honey, you would be so awesome as a showing assistant, which is way less money than you could ever want. Because she's got an amazing personality and all this stuff. And she said, like, I didn't think of going into real estate, but if I ever did, I said I would want to work with you guys because you're so awesome. We're friends now too. I'm like, okay, I can nip this in the bud so fast. Anyway, she came and after 2 hours she goes, oh, yeah, I know you worked that hard, I didn't realize. I know you worked hard, I didn't realize it was that hard. And I said, listen, let's just, you keep sending us your referrals, we'll keep going out for dinners and stuff like that.
How do you like this?
I did.
Yeah?
Thanks for hanging with us, girl.
Oh, no problem, thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Yeah, because it is, because when you're doing it right and you outline everything and you show people, because people only see how great of a job we do,
Mm-hmm.
and how sweet we are, and how much we love on them, and how easy everything is for them. They don't have a clue.
How we make it look so easy because
Don't worry, I'll take care of it.
we're like that motherly instinct. We keep them away from all the shit that we have to do and deal with, right? Sleepless nights, dealing with people and having to fight your
around.
tails. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can say, I'd love to have you come and interview. Just be prepared for a really grueling process. And if you make it through, I'll be happy to have you.
Yeah.
Because you'll make it through.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I love the CV process, right? Because it allows us to easily have those conversations with our
Yeah,
database.
with that CD.
Yeah, I'll show you,
We should
as soon as we
make
leave here.
Yeah, so I can get onto that.
Yes.
So, and when we've got teams right now that are Quantum Leap Kids Can certified. So that's Quantum Leap, but the kids version of it, the young adult version of it.
18 to 24.
Yeah. And they're going out and teaching that in colleges and universities to create mind share with future graduates
Mm-hmm.
and create internships in their system so that you can mold. Yes.
Refuse to lower your standards to accommodate those who refuse to raise theirs.
Which we do a lot.
We do.
Yeah, all that.
We do a lot.
Yeah. And that's another huge resource for talent. And an easy way to create mind share not only in future talent, also in future database.
What's that, sir? I was...
Teaching QL Kids Can.
Oh, yes.
That's a huge, huge piece that almost every agent misses out on.
So this is good for
So
you.
that is a course.
Yeah, we
Certified
actually,
online.
Keller Williams.
Donna Murray is working on it with Steve Hanlon. So her son did QL when it was at Glenn's office a number of years ago.
Oh, wow. And it just happened, right? Like last month, 2 months ago, Steve did it somewhere?
He does it pretty regularly. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
session going on every month.
So
around the same.
we had in that neighborhood a few years ago. And now Donna wants to do it. She wants to get certified and do it. She wants to be an instructor. But we are talking to Stephen about bringing it here in the fall,
Okay.
as well as a junior version, 14 to 17.
Yeah, the high school version.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
which for my kids is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
My girl could really use it.
Yeah. I mean, it's an easy certification process online. So for me as an, you know, if I was looking at it as an agent perspective, that's lead generation for me. If I can go out into the community, A, add value to it, and B, create mind share for future database and future talent, and that takes one day for me to do that, that is huge, huge potential value that most agents don't connect the dots to. Because kids in those age groups are the ones that are going to be buying future transactions. They are the ones that are going to be going home talking to their parents and saying, this is what I learned from so-and-so. You know there's no other agent out there that's creating that type of value and contribution.
And who is it that you were just referring to, Stephen?
Stephen Hanlon, he's the TL in one of the Mississauga offices.
He's also on the board of KWKC International.
Okay, that's Kids Can. Kids Can.
Yes, that's okay. That's
Just
why
with
we're happy
KW,
you're here.
there's just so much to learn.
That's why we're so happy you're here. You're not doing it on your own.
This is actually, I really like this. What should we expect from our admin?
Mm-hmm, yeah. Now I lowballed it here, minimum 30% increase in our business. I did that because most agents have difficulty accepting
Bigger numbers?
bigger numbers. Fully documented systems in our business. The profit and loss statement, so actually monitoring that and driving it. Increased efficiencies and effectiveness in the lead generation systems. Because it's not just about documenting what we're doing, it's also about increasing
That's right.
what we're doing.
So are the things that you've covered so far, especially the fully documented systems
Mhm.
and the P&L,
Yep.
that's all following the MREA. So is it on the kellerinc.com website, like it schedules? So all of those, like the,
Yeah, the P&L statement there is
Yeah,
there.
but
so
then the
chart
fully
of accounts.
documented systems, like there's gotta be like templates or something to at least start with?
There is on KW Connect. When
Okay.
you go into the courses section, there's
Oh,
actual
in the
MREA
materials.
courses
Oh, all right.
for the materials. So
Sure.
listing transaction coordinator, they all come with.
And that's on KW Connect.
Yes, under KW courses. Just go into, they're alphabetical, so go into the M section and you'll see them all there.
Okay.
So there's a lot of systems in there that you could take and then tweak for your own business. Now bear in mind, they're US based, so there might be some terminology there.
But all the 30, 60, 90s are there for all the
Yes,
roles as
yes,
well.
if you go under career visioning,
So that's a good start to
Materials.
even say, I don't even know what the expectation should be for 30, 60, 90.
yep, and I think that's actually, you've got a sample there.
Are these handouts?
Yep, you've got a sample there of 30, 60, 90. So creation of a talent bench, they're actually responsible for that because they're gonna do the next hire. Attendance to training, not just for the admin side, also the sales side. Protecting the rainmaker's time, obviously that's an absolute given, and creating bonus opportunities, which is what we talked about before, the base salary plus bonus, right? How does that get earned?
I don't have it full screen because
Okay.
it kept going.
So from an ROI perspective, we talked about a couple of them, and yet there's creating customer service feedback rating. So for instance, if you're getting 1 out of every 3 clients actually giving you feedback, and then they create a system where you get feedback on every single client, right, with a rating of 4.2 or above, or whatever you choose that to be, that's gonna create ROI. Decrease in expenses, right, holding your money accountable. Increase in units sold, increase in database referrals, increase in attendance to client events. Number of direct referrals from family and friends, right? Because they have their own database. They own a phone, they have a database. So how much business is expected from that? And then pretty much any way you could measure an increase. So bring in 1 buyer or seller from a personal database, bring 1 money-saving idea every month, bring 1 money-making idea every month, and bring 1 time-saving idea every month, right? Because time is also money. Call past clients for business 1 hour a day. Call vendors for business 1 hour a day. Create a concierge service for your clients. These are all just ideas of how an ROI can be created, which most of the time we haven't thought about.
Because we usually do it ourselves.
Yes. So, how do we train them? So we talked about the group coaching, that you could put them through. We just talked about the manuals that are inside of KW Connect. I also recommend having them shadow, right? Like, and literally, this is what I always find is, I don't want somebody to shadow me because they're going to slow me down. That's usually the pushback I get. And I say, well, let me ask you a question. When you look at your shadow, what does it do? Just sits there, right? Does it make any noise?
No.
Does it slow you down in any way?
No.
So if you're having somebody shadow, that's essentially what a shadow means. They sit and watch. How are they going to learn from what your natural process is? How much time things normally take you if they're sitting there constantly asking you questions? That is a different type of structure which you could do afterwards once they've collected data. But shadowing is just sitting there watching somebody. So if you look at it in that way, there's a lot that can be learned from an efficiency perspective and how does somebody naturally flow through a day versus sitting there picking somebody's brain for 8 hours. That's not a win-win for anybody. Right? So if you've got that ability, if you've got someone that's already high functioning, I would definitely suggest it. And then get them involved in masterminds. Do you guys have an admin mastermind here?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet, we're gonna talk about it.
So if you don't have one currently, check in the market centers around. If they've got an admin mastermind, send them to it. I mean, they love sharing ideas. So put them in a pool where they can get access to what's already working for other people.
And I would bet that there's a Facebook group too,
Yes.
like even non-Keller related.
Yeah.
Facebook group for everything.
Yep. Yep. So get them access to those resources. Because again, if we were the best one to do that role, we wouldn't be the agent. So it doesn't make sense for us to be the trainers of that role.
Right.
I posted this actually,
And
with no details.
the only other thing I would say is if they're brand new to the industry, so they've never experienced real estate, a lot of times you have a lot of great systems and yet they're up here, right? And we have difficulty pulling it from here to here. Get them to shadow you for a couple weeks. Because you're going to run through those systems because you've been doing it already. Let them watch what you do and create the documentation. And then you can go back and test it and see if they caught every single step. There's the manuals. Lead tracking and follow-up, marketing and servicing listings, managing the MREA office, operation manuals and forms. That's what's on KW.
That's on KW, okay,
Yeah.
under manuals.
Yeah, so just look at the M section and you'll
Yep.
see all of those there. Perfect. And you can download them. So, how do I make the time? That's always another question. How do I make the time for it? In order for talent to be committed to you, they must see that you're invested in them. So what I find is we get this great talent, we bring them into our organization, you know, we're showing up the first couple weeks, and then we get caught back up into our minutia and our regular habits, and that meeting you said you could do with them every week starts to drop off. You start to reschedule, you start to cancel. Time is a huge value piece for that particular group. They're very loyal, they're very compliant, and it's almost like it's a given as a love language. If you're familiar with the 5 love languages or 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. So when you start to not follow through on that, that is the first indicator that's going to cause a break in that relationship. So as a leader, you've got to be committed in your time on a consistent basis, even if it's just 15 minutes a week, right? Or I used to do it with my expansion team where I would have a half an hour call every single morning before I started my day. And that was just, what are we doing today? Checking in, what's the priority? That's it. And we do that every morning.
Like an accountability partner, right? Just, yeah.
Yep, just checking in and making sure we're on the same wavelength, right? Because in real estate, things can shift very quickly, right? All of a sudden you're like, whoa, I just got 2 listings today, oh my God, right? And then everything's like, okay, priorities have switched, right? So because of the nature of our business, the consistency in communication is what allows us to keep going with it, right? And to be honest, it allows us to break the system. Because the goal of the business is to break the system. Otherwise, you're not growing. It's like that E to P moment. Do you know what that is, E to P? It's in the 6 perspectives, and it's entrepreneurial to purposeful. So most of us approach the business very entrepreneurial way. We know what we know. And when we move to purposeful, that's when we start using the systems and the models and changing our way of thinking. And what happens is, you know, when we're in entrepreneurial mode, we hit the ceiling, and it's like, no matter what we do, we just can't get past it, right? And then you see this little dip, and then all of a sudden you shoot up and you break through. And you get into the purposeful side. You start using things that you've learned. You start implementing. It's not just about, I know the best way to do it. Now it's about, I'm following the best models and systems to do it. So from an E to P perspective, that's where the mess comes, right? I mean, when you break through the ceiling, is it just a perfect hole that you walk through?
That's in the book Mastery, right? Is that what you're saying?
It's in the 6 personal perspectives.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's actually a course on it.
It's not 6 personal perspectives.
Oh, it's a 6
Keys to abundance.
keys to abundance now. So it's not a perfect hole you go through in a ceiling. What happens? The glass breaks, right? Shards all over the place. It's messy. We intentionally want that. We want to break the system.
Want to fix it.
Yeah. So,
It's broken right now.
so investing the time in that, being consistent with your commitment to that is important when it comes to talent. Get them as much training as you can. Be consistent in your communication. Don't be the agent that goes to class, gets all excited,
And comes back.
then comes back to your bin and says, "Oh my God, we're changing everything, here you go," and walk out the door. Be consistent in your communication. You will drive people nuts if you do that. And then in regards to the accountability and coaching, use the tools that are available to you. And they're all right there. I mean, the GPS is the 135. What's your goal? What are your priorities? What are your strategies to get there? And then based on that, how do you break that down on a weekly basis through the 411? And the 411 is your 15-minute meetings. That's what keeps it to 15 minutes. And that's it. That's at least from the presentation perspective. There's so much more
That
in
is
the full
good.
day course. Yeah, hopefully you got some value out of
Lots
it.
of no's.
It's just good to write
Always.
value, because it's good to just see the flow, the system, right? It's like individually you probably know all of that, but just see the steps and just to have a system to follow.
Mhm.
Well, that's it, to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's,
No, I've got ton of notes.
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's the amount of effort you put into it. I think is really what's gonna make the impact on who you attract. And that's why we've spent so much time on vision and everything else beforehand. Before we even talked about, okay, now how do we get talent? Because those are the pieces that really attract them and what they're gonna be looking for. And trust me, I've made enough mistakes in this arena to know that cutting the corners just does not work. It just does not work.
How long have you been with Keller Williams?
5 with Keller, 18 in real estate.
And did you see a change in your business when you came to Keller Williams?
Oh, absolutely.
Because of the systems and the
Oh.
mindset of the hire and stuff?
Yeah, well, you don't know what you don't know, right?
And you work and you work and you work and you're like, oh, whatever.
You were an agent?
Way back when.
Okay.
Well, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, way back when I was.
So you're not an agent, you're not an active agent?
No, I am a MAPS coach and I run my own training and consulting company.
You haven't been an agent in years.
Yeah, because I found my niche at that point in time anyways, on managing the business. So at one point I was running a residential brokerage, development company, property management company, insurance company, and a mortgage company all at the same time. And that's what I knew, right? Like that was my world. I didn't know anything different until I came to KW. And I think that's truly where I found who I was. And very quickly got onto the training and coaching side of the business. Because I had been doing it, but I've been doing it on the E side, not the P side, the purposeful side. I didn't even know there was an environment that fostered that. So.
What's your last name, Kelly?
Maniateas, Maniateas. I'll give you one of my cards.
Okay.
So yeah, so I didn't know what I didn't know. And Sunny will tell you to this day that I was the worst interview he ever had. Because I was at Remax. And I was actually, Derek Chan walked in the day that I quit because I was going to Sam McDaddy. Because I helped Sam open his office.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and I was too bored, so I went back to Remax. And then he eventually got to a higher transaction count, so then I'm like, okay, now I can come back over. And Derek's like, no, you've got to meet Sunny, my team leader. And I'm like, team leader? Right, I don't know. He's like, no, you've got to meet him. I'm like, I've already said yes to Sam. It's like, I don't care, 5 minutes. So I walk into the interview and I'm like, okay, you got 10 minutes. So he literally was like, okay. And I stayed like that the whole time until he dissed me. And when he dissed me, which was part of Recruit Select, which is now CV, I walked out of that saying, you know me better than my own husband. And I had never experienced anything like that before. So that intrigued me. And we literally went through the whole hiring process in 4 days because I had already said yes to Sam. And he talked me into joining and taking a $20,000 pay cut.
Really?
To do it, yeah. Yep. That's the power of the process.
Because you're buying into the vision
Yes.
of what's of the future.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what it was. And that's the only reason I could even get my husband to agree to a $20,000 pay cut.
With 2 little babies, well, actually, no, just 1 at the time, right?
No, I had 2. I had 2 at the time, yeah. Yeah.
And so in year 2, were you below the 20 or above the 20?
I only stayed in MCA for 1 year. By the end of the year, I had already become a MAPS coach.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and about 4 months after that, got out of the MCA role because I had found my replacement. I had been a full-time MAPS coach since then, and having my training and consulting company. Because what I discovered once I knew what I didn't know, I started stepping into what I knew I didn't know to learn it, and found out that my true purpose was actually on that side of the industry. I had more to give than just from one role with one team.
That's what you have to do, you have to step
Yeah,
into what you think,
yeah,
right?
yeah, well, I mean, I had never been in an environment like that before.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it existed. I didn't even know of Keller Williams when I was at Remax. I was truly Keller who? And yet, thank God Derek stepped in my office that one day. If he had been a day late, I would have been gone. Yeah, would never have known. So,
Fate.
yep.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
Thank you so
We never
much.
do.